So you've just been hired by an event organizer to film their music festival or concert. Maybe you've come in to do the video production, maybe you've come in to do the photo work. And I'm sure there's no online platform or YouTube channel that specifically caters to your question, which is, how do you film such a big event in such a big space with so many crew at the least amount of cost? This video will outline to you every single step that you should take from start of pre-production to the end of post-production, everything in between, from what kind of people you should hire, what your rapport with the audience and the event organizer should be, and how you should cater to the video in the end. I'm just here to give you pure value from my years of experience working in the music festival scene. So stick till the end to get all of my tips and tricks of filming concerts and music festivals. But first, who am I? My name is Rohan. I run a company called Rojak Media. I'm a 22-year-old filmmaker from Singapore, and my company specializes in brand films, and we've filmed over a dozen music festivals and concerts in just the past 2 years. And within these 2 years, I've improved incredibly as a filmmaker and as a director, leading crews of over 10 each and every single time. And I'm going to share to you how I've been able to do all that again and again while impressing the client and putting out something to the world that no one has ever seen before. So I'm going to break down this video into three main sections: pre-production, the actual filming of the show itself, and the editing/post-production stage. Let's start with pre-production. This is going to sound weird, but the first thing that you want to talk about or you want to brainstorm about when you are discussing about concerts or music festivals is to figure out if you want to tell a story. Now, if you want to be a proper filmmaker, I encourage you to take out a notepad and a pen and start writing down the things that I'm about to say. If you're on the train and don't have a pen or paper, just grab the notepad app and start typing stuff. This is going to be very useful, and you should take down the stuff that I'm about to say. So why is it that these videos for music festivals should have some kind of a storyline? And that is mainly to separate them from every other after movie that has come out so far. If you go into Ultra Music Festival's YouTube page and find for their music festival after movies, you'll realize that a lot of them are just kind of cookie cutter. And the European EDM festivals have kind of followed suit, and they haven't exactly done anything really different from one another. Yes, the editing style is different. Yes, there are more hyperlapses this year than last year. There are more drone shots, more FPV shots, there are more pyro shots. But at the end of the day, it is just a highlight of fireworks, DJs, people screaming, and fat tits. There's nothing really different about all the after movies that are 2.5 minutes long and feature dancing girls at the start with loud, beautiful, well, quite frankly, beautiful EDM tracks and beautiful pyros. Nothing wrong, but I think something different can be done. And this is where you think about what kind of story that you want to tell within your after movie. Get me? You would want a story so that people watch your film over and over and over again, so that it has a human touch to it and people actually share the video because of some emotional impact within them. For example, at the start of the event, if you notice that the event organizers are having a tough time figuring out the stage design, that could be one of your biggest selling points. That could be a story that you want to pick on and depict that into the entire after movie. How the event organizers came up with the design of the stage to cater to 1 million people online and 100,000 people at the stage. That's a big responsibility that the event organizers have eventually overcome, and they will have to overcome. And it is a beautiful story to capture if you do it well enough. If you bring in a mini documentary crew, maybe a size of 2 or 3 people, have them following around the event crew, show off the amount of effort that they've put in, show the late nights that they've put in at the office, show all the different diagrams that they've been trying to build from the very beginning, and show the final product at the end. That could be a beautiful story for you to tell instead of the standard 2.5 minute after movie. You'll notice me talking a lot about trying to do something different from the traditional style of after movies, and that is for a very specific reason. It's because my business focuses on such stories as well. For each and every city that we travel to overseas with music artists, we try to tell a story with them. Instead of going overseas and filming a 2.5 minute after movie, we try to tell a story along with the entire job that we were given. The next thing to find out after you've kind of understood what story you want. Finding a story within such fast-paced events can be a daunting task on its own, and it's not something that I want to get into entirely because it can be its own 1 hour separate video. So if you want to see that, maybe leave a comment down below and I'll try to make that happen. The next thing you want to figure out is whether the event has some sort of vibe. This is when you should take to social media, go on Instagram, Facebook, and all the different websites that the show has to offer. Go inside them and analyze the kind of vibe they are selling. If you know that the people that are attending the concert or festival are around the 20s to 30s, you know that you can apply a Gen Z concept to the entire video. If you know that they're above 30 and into their 40s and 50s, you know that they have a very peculiar music taste. Maybe it could be rock, maybe it's house music, maybe it's trance music, and you have to stick to that when you deliver the final video. Maybe the music you would choose for such a video could be purely trance. Someone who's in their 40s who attended the show watching a Gen Z edit with the word skibbity around it might not really appreciate that video. So it's important to find out who the audience is, and you do that by analyzing the comment section of the social media pages. The next thing is also whether the show has a color scheme. For example, in Malaysia, there's a show called Pinkfish, and their primary color is obviously pink. For example, Ultra, they always have a little bit of a teal/silvery tone to all of their brandings, and you can see that in a lot of their after movies. Does your music festival have a particular color scheme that they like? These are things that you ought to analyze before getting into it. The next thing you want to figure out is the event rundown from start all the way till the very end. By start, I mean the very start. What time is the earliest fan coming to queue for the show? What time is the first fan going to be let into the arena? What time, if there is one, what time is the host going to go up on stage? What time is the artist going to go up on stage? What time is the artist going to come down? What kind of different songs is he going to play? And is there a song list that can be provided to us? What time does the artist exit the stage? What time do the fans exit the arena? All of these timings you ought to get down straight. And I'm going to get into all this in very detail in just a moment because it's critical for the actual show day itself. But for now, it's important that you speak to the event organizers and get as much details as you can about the timings of the show. So now I'm assuming you're 2 to 3 weeks away from the show, and this is when you pick your crew. Maybe you work as a solo director and you are bringing in a bunch of friends or a bunch of videographers and photographers that you know to join you in this massive crew to film this music festival. This is going to be one of your most important steps in the entire job. If you're given a big budget and you have the expenditure to splurge on talented people, you very well should. A music festival generally should give you about a 30 to 40% profit margin. So for say, if you have a $10,000 budget, you should be using about $6,000 as your costs and keeping to yourself about $4,000. Now granted, this can vary between show to show. There have been shows from my experience where I've taken 80% profit, and there have been shows where I've taken only 25% profit. So depending on the kind of show you're doing and the level of experience you have, you ought to spend a good amount of money on professional people that are reliable and will help you get the job done. Let me explain. Let's say you're someone without experience and this is going to be your first music festival or concert that you are filming. You want to pick people that have incredible amounts of experience in the music festival scene. That was one of the first steps that I've ever did, and it helped me immensely. When I was doing my first ever show, I recruited top of the line people that already were doing their best in the nightlife industry in my country. They were top of the line, they knew what they were doing, they've worked with multiple high level DJs and artists before, and they know what happens behind the scenes of a concert. And for a newbie like me, that kind of experience was invaluable. Even if my filmmaking ascertains, or even if my filmmaking were to be better than their filmmaking and their kind of shots, I would bring them in nonetheless, just because of the experience that you have in a concert environment. You should have at least one super experienced member on board your team. So next thing you might be asking me is, Rohan, how many people should I bring on for this show? How many videographers should I bring? How many photographers should I bring? Let me explain this to you. Generally, if it's a show that has 6,000 to 7,000 people and more, bring in 3 videographers minimum and 2 photographers minimum. If it's a show that is 8,000 people and up, bring in 4 videographers and 2 photographers minimum. If it's a unique stage design whereby the stage is in the center of the stadium instead of a traditional side stage, bring in 5 videographers and 3 photographers minimum. Your budget should be proportional to the ambition of the event organizers. If the event organizers want to sell out the stadium and bring in 10,000 people and more, you should pitch your budget to be that level so that you can hire more crew. And the next question that you might be asking me is, what kind of equipment should all of these people be on? Now, at the very least, for all the videographers, they should have 3 main essential lenses carried with them at all times. 1 normal lens that maybe could be a 24 to 70 or 24 to 105. Second, 1 prime, 50mm, 85mm, somewhere around there. And lastly, if they can do so, a telephoto lens at all times. In a concert environment, in a music festival environment, anything can happen at any time. Someone could be jumping off the Mojo barrier. Someone could be screaming into the camera. Someone could be doing headbanging. The artist could be doing flips on stage. The artist could jump off the stage into the pit. We never know. And for all these moments, we have to be ultra prepared. And that is done so by carrying the most equipment that we can while being as versatile as we can. I learned to do this by carrying a magic belt around me with 3 different pockets. I have the 70 to 200 in one of my right pockets and my prime on my left pocket. And for the 7200, I'm carrying the Sony G Master 2, which is incredibly light for what it can do, and it has full internal zoom and focusing. So the size remains the same and the weight always remains the same, obviously. So I keep that on one side and my 50mm prime on the other side, and my 24 to 105 always stays on the camera. And I swap between these 3 every time I need to. And that gives me all the range that I need. But if you're being a little bit more budget conscious, instead of 3 telephoto lenses among the 3 of you, maybe you can just have 2. But at the minimum, have 2 telephoto lenses among all your videographers. For the photographers, I expect them to carry a similar set whereby they have 1 prime, 1 telephoto, and a normal range. The photographers that I bring in are highly skilled, and they also carry with them a small fisheye lens at all times. The fisheye lenses are amazing when it comes to capturing how wide the space is, and if the arena has sold out an incredible amount of tickets. For example, if they sold out more than 10,000, 15,000 tickets, and if all the LED wristbands are lighting up in sync, a fisheye photo at that moment would be absolutely incredible to showcase how many tickets that the arena has sold, how many people there actually are within the space, and it creates some beautiful, dreamy shots that an artist can dream of. So now you're 1 week away from the show. This is when you begin creating your slide decks and doing the visualization for the actual show itself. Start creating the slide decks for the team to understand and visualize so that they can visualize for themselves where they can go, where they can be at any moment in time during the concert. Get your seat plan ready, get your song list ready, and take note of all the entrances, exits, staircases that allow you to go from one floor to the second floor if you're an indoor venue, and most importantly, your media room and parking for the crew. These are things that are often sidelined but are extremely important when it comes to the actual show day itself. Granted, there are things that are supposed to be considered by the producer, but if they haven't done so, just give them a gentle reminder to settle the parking and a dedicated room with a bunch of tables so that the entire media crew can come, relax, chill, get a drink, lay down the equipment in peace, and do the DIT if they need to. Within this week, present the plan to the team and make sure everybody is on the same page before they come to work the following week. And now you're 3 days before the show begins. By now, you should have already gotten the song list from the artist's crew and know what are the individual songs that the artist is going to play on stage. This song list is going to be extremely helpful for you because it allows you to plan for where the positioning of your crew should be for each and every song. I film for this artist called Anirudh Ravichander a lot, and I'm able to assess each and every song to its exact minuscule detail. I've done about 8 to 10 shows with him. I know each and every single pyro, confetti, CO2, visual, and movement points that Anirudh would execute during each and every song. So even if I have a different crew for every single show of his show that I film, I know what's going to happen at every song that's going to be played. And I know exactly where to position my crew at any one point so that I don't miss any moment. Now, obviously, you are probably starting out in the music festival scene, and you probably don't know what the artist is exactly going to do on stage. But if you're lucky enough, you can go on YouTube and find for videos of the artist doing a concert previously. For example, the artist did a show in Japan before coming to your city to do the show. So go on YouTube, find X Artist Japan show, and I'm sure you can find a plethora of videos on YouTube for this guy's concert. Go through each and every single one of them and try and figure out exactly what happens at each and every song. Generally speaking, when the artist does a tour, each and every single of his shows at each and every city tends to be the exact same. The songs are going to play at the exact same. Maybe 1 or 2 swap outs depending on the song's popularity in each city. But generally, the structure, the stage design, and the dialogues on stage are pretty much going to be the exact same for each and every city. So if you see the performance of the artist for a show in Japan, you very well know that's going to be quite similar to you in your city as well. So that being said, if you notice that the artist is going to be extremely hype on stage for a particular song, if they're going to walk forward and dance on stage, you would know for sure to position 2 guys up in front and capture the entire moment and leave 1 guy at the back covering a telephoto angle. If you know that the audience is going to be headbanging to a particular rock song, you would know then and there to position a guy at the pit to film the audiences going crazy at the mojo barriers. So create a note for every single song for what kind of shots you'd want to achieve for each and every song and convey that to your team. And just like that, you have entered the concert day. The nerves are starting to hit you. You've never done a show like this before, but you know what? You're here and you're about to execute it. You enter the room and you see your crew of 10 people waiting for you with instructions in your hands waiting to be delivered to them. The nerves will hit you and you will feel complete imposter syndrome for why you are suddenly leading a huge crew in a huge arena. This is a moment where you should bring in the law of attraction. It's going to get all phony and spiritually now, but this is when to activate your most confident side and feel like you are someone who is 10x more skilled than the version you are right now. Think of the most skilled person that you hired within your team and imagine yourselves as being 10x more skilled than that person. And then you send it into the show. Within the briefing room, 3 hours, minimally 3 hours before the show starts, recap every single thing that you previously briefed them about again. Recap with them the song list, the entrances, exits, staircases, floor layout, the pit layout, pit entries, exits. Make sure everybody has their own individual media passes that allows them to get into all the different areas that they need to. Make sure one person at least has access to the artist's corridor. And most importantly, make sure the crew is in a very good mood by putting ample amounts of coffee and Red Bull on the table. Make sure it's cold. In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you some of the most important advice that you're going to hear if you're filming music festivals and concerts. And the first thing is to send the crew out 2 hours before the show even begins. If the show begins at 7:30 and you know for a fact that the artist is only going to go on stage at 7:30, it is very important that you let the crew go out to begin filming at 5:30 itself. You need them to be outside minimally 2 hours before the scheduled filming time so that they can be warmed up. I've seen many times where we just go straight into the show and the crew isn't warmed up for the shots at all. They're still trying to get used to the gimbal. It takes them about 5 to 10 minutes. But by that time, you've already missed out the intro of the show, which is always generally the most important part of the show itself. And if you are unprepared for that moment, if you're still fidgeting with your equipment, then that's game over. So you want these people to be out at 5:30 itself, 2 hours before the actual concert starts, to begin filming right there and then, get themselves warmed up, get used to the gimbal, get used to the handheld rig, get used to zooming in and out, crash zooming, whatever it is, and adjusting their ND filters. All these things take at least 30 minutes to 1 hour to fully nail into the videographer system. If you don't allow for time for our crew to be prepped and warmed up, they're going to suffer within the show. From 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. is the time that the crew takes to go and interact with the people that are attending the concert. If there are people queuing up at the standing pen queues, get them to go there and talk to the people. Make friends with some of the people. This is a very important step that I always take in every single of my shows, which is to build rapport with the audience. This is so that if I see one of them again during the show, they are more likely to say hi to my camera and be more camera friendly. Camera friendliness and camera shyness immediately goes away when the person that's being filmed is familiar with the cameraman himself. If they can see the cameraman as not as a stranger, but somewhat of an acquaintance or even a friend, then that puts them at ease and allows them to be more camera friendly and be more themselves on camera. A lot of times you would notice if you are cold with the audience, if you're cold with the people you're filming, if you're going to pull the camera right to their faces, they're going to be camera shy and they're going to put their hand out like this and be like, oh, no, not me. But if it were to be one of your friends, someone that you know, you put the camera on their face, they're going to dance for you instead. So from this time, from 5:30 to 7:30, go out, make friends, especially with those in the standing pen, and get their names, say hi, and make sure you build a good rapport with them. Once that's done, at about 7:30 or 6:45, head into the arena and do one final briefing. Ensure all the communication systems are set up and go for it. Bring everybody to their respective areas, get them to stand at their respective positions and prepare for the show start. Ensure that each person has a minimum of 2 hours of 4K 100 FPS recording, and then it's time to go. At this point, it's just a flow of executing the plan that you've already made for the past 2 weeks, where each person should be at each and every single position for each and every single song. All you have to do is execute it as of this point. If you would like a greater in-depth video about the specific kind of shots, be it crash zooms, parallaxes, or static shots that I implement within my concert and music festival videos, drop a comment down below and maybe that's something I'll try and figure out in the next video. And I'll do so with like examples and all that shabazz. But this video is just outlining the basics that you would need to do for pre-filming and post-production. I want you to take note that during the entire concert itself, it's okay to take breaks. It's okay for the crew to just sit down, get a gulp of water, and then resume on. We don't expect everyone to be going hard on for the full 3 hours. Breaks are necessary for all of us because we are carrying heavy equipment at all times and we are running around the entire stadium, which can clock a lot of kilometers. But it's also important to do it strategically. If you know that for a particular song, the lighting of the set isn't going to be very good, or if you know that the artist is just going to be cooped up at one particular corner, then you know that the wide angle holding person, that the crew holding the wide angle camera can take a rest and activate the telephoto camera guy instead. If you know that you won't use a particular song in the edit, then everybody can just go and rest up. It's not necessary for everybody to press record for that particular song. Once the show is done, it's important to not go back into the media room very quickly. This is a rookie mistake that I used to do. After the end of every single show, we would all go back into the room, chill out, get our Red Bulls and Cokes, and get a nice beer and wrap up the night. As I did more festivals, I realized how important it was to remain in the stadium until the last fan exits the arena. This is critical time that you and your crew can use to get emotions and interactions of the fans when the show is done. Artists generally leave the shows on a high, except for Kanye West. Every single artist that I know of would leave the show and end the show on a high, with a high song that gives everyone adrenaline and leaves them wanting for more. When they exit, the audience is generally shouting, "One more, one more." And that is a time when the house lights have turned on, when everybody is starting to walk backwards, grab a few audience members. Maybe it's the ones you met before the show, the ones at the queue. Grab a few of them and ask them how the show was. Record the raw emotions in their faces as they tell you that it was one of the best shows that they ever had of their life. Maybe The Weeknd was amazing. Maybe Travis Scott was insane. He was crazy. And let the hearts of the audience and the thoughts of the audience flow on camera. That's a very raw moment that you're not going to get ever again. And it's a raw reaction to the kind of show that they just experienced. These are the kind of clips that are incredibly valuable to the event organizer because it shows right there and there, point blank, how good of the show was without having to resort to online reviews as such. Showing the raw emotion of a person screaming on camera, telling them how good the show was, is going to be infinitely better than an online review saying the show was amazing. And these are things that the event organizer will definitely value, and these are things that the artist values as well. After the last fan has exited the stadium, now is the time for the entire crew to go back in and get a nice sip of beer. As you're doing that, each and every single one of you guys should pass your SD cards to one singular DIT. Do not confuse this person. Each and every single one of you guys pass all of your cards to one single person who has all the cards arranged in a beautiful fashion. Each and every person should be named on a table with masking tape, with in and out. In being a loaded SD card and out being a transferred SD card. Once all the cards are done and once you've ensured that every card is out, do a double backup of all the footages that you've just transferred. Once that's done, pass the SD cards back and then everybody can leave. And now we enter the next day. Once your hangover is finished, it's time to enter the post-production. Editing. Once you're on this stage, it's important to not let momentum die. There have been moments in my music festival and concert journey whereby I sit on a particular edit for too long and I lose interest over time. I take 3 weeks, 1 month to complete a 10-minute film of the show and I lose interest over time. It's important to generally finish up these videos within a week or two. At least finish up the first cut within a week or two so that your momentum and creativity continues to flow. Each and every time you sit down to do an edit, make sure it's a solid block of time. Make sure it's a dedicated 5-6 hours of time that you're going to sit down and work on the edit and not sparse 1 hour, 30-minute breaks. You want to have flows within these editing sessions so that you can knock out a huge chunk of edit at one singular go. If you have the budget and the capability to do so, give the event organizers a highlight video. It could be a short one of 30 seconds by the very next day or two. This is critical for the event organizers and the artists, as the audience that just came to watch the show still has the concert fresh in their minds. So if you give them another treat, showing them how the event actually went, they're more likely to engage with that piece of content compared to a piece of content that's going to come out a month later. And with that, even if you're doing a singular 2.5-minute edit, as I've said before, or if you're doing a 10-minute film with the entire storyline, it's essential to get it out within 1 month of the show itself. And that's because the show still maintains its relevance within the audience and the people will continue to engage with that post. If you are able to, and if the event organizers like you guys, sign a multi-concert deal with them. If you like the event organizers and they like you back and they like the work that you do, sign a multi-year or multi-concert deal with these event organizers.